Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be taking a look in this training module at understanding some basics with our low pressure fuel pump control and understanding what we need to update in our calibration files for things like a booster pump, or if we do a drop-in fuel pump. A very popular upgrade is the DW400 fuel pump. So we're going to talk about what changes we need to make in our calibration file so the low side fuel pump control will work better in these two popular upgrades we might find ourselves using. So let's jump in and open up a stock calibration file. We're going to take a look at where we can locate the fuel pump tables and the fuel pump control for the low side, talk about the general logic that's going on within the control, and then we're going to talk about what we need to change again for a booster pump and a DW400 fuel pump. Okay, let's go up here to File, let's go to Open, and let's jump in here to our desktop. Let's go to our HPT Gen 3 Coyote Course folder. Let's go to our sample calibration file subfolder, and then let's grab a stock file here for this tutorial. Let's grab a 2020 Mustang GT manual stock. Let that open up. We're going to move right over here into our fuel system tab. This is going to be housing all the information for doing both the low and the high side fuel pump style control. Fuel pressure here in the tab. This is going to be where we specify what we want our low side pressure to be at. We can see that's going to be specified in here. And then the actual control routine can be found on the left column here under fuel pump. So everything here under fuel pump is the low pressure pump. Everything over here on the right is the high pressure pump, which is driving the direct injection system. So we find everything's located in a convenient area here in the calibration file, but we're editing something specific for low side and something specific for high side. So we just want to make sure you're not going to be touching anything in the high pressure pump control if you're upgrading and changing out your low pressure pump. Let's jump over here to fuel pressure and let's talk about a few things. So first things first, when we're talking about our low pressure pump control, we're going to find that we have the pump mounted in the tank, and what's controlling the pump is a fuel pump control module. It's going to be sending a pulse width modulated output duty cycle control between 0 to 50%, and it's going to vary how much voltage and amperage it's feeding the fuel pump to maintain and hit a desired target. The desired target is going to be coming from our tables here. So one of these tables that we find, it's going to be where we specify what we want that fuel pressure to be at. Now, we know what the fuel pressure is going to be because we have an actual fuel pressure sensor mounted on the driver's side fuel rail, and that's giving a feedback to the engine control module, which allows then the fuel pump control module to regulate at a desired target. So we tell the fuel pump control module what we want to run for a desired pressure. It looks at that pressure sensor, figures out and compares actual pressure to the target pressure, and then it adjusts a duty cycle output from the fuel pump control module to the fuel pump in between 0 to 50% typically, and we'll find we vary the voltage at amperage, and we will drive and control the fuel pump to the target. Now, this is something left over in terms of how it's controlling and working here from older style Fords. So if we're talking about a old 3-valve, they had the same type of feed forward fuel pump control strategy in them. So Ford went away from it and they came back to it here in the Gen 3s. So if you've taken our mod motor training course, some of this will sound a little bit familiar and look a little familiar to you, the way that Ford has implemented the low side pressure control. So what we have here in our low pressure desire is what we want to have for a desired fuel pressure. The PFI demand table here is what is responsible for the majority of what the low pressure pump is going to do. This table here is based on average fuel mass, which we can log in our VCM scanner, and then it's based on a target pressure. You'll find typically it's going to be set here between 58 to 65 PSI, depending on the operating strategy you're working with. Let's go close this real quick. Now under fuel pump, on the left side here, this is where we have all of our programming details for the fuel pump control. What we're going to find is the system is driven off of a feed forward table. Desired voltage here is going to be based on our target pressure. So target pressure comes from our tables over here in the fuel pressure tab. And then we also have our fuel pump flow rate, depending on how much the fuel pump's outputting. So we can see here that's climbing, fuel flow rate is climbing through the fuel pump and on the top axes. And what we'll find is as we start to climb in fuel flow rate, and as our target pressure changes here, our voltage that we're sending to the fuel pump will also change. Now you're going to note when you're looking at the table here, the peak voltage is 12 volts. That's going to be at a very high target pressure, so 73 and higher, and it's going to be here at 6 pound per minute worth of fuel flow. You're going to notice also here the max voltage is set at 12 volts, so that's going to limit us in how much we can supply to the fuel pump. Now, if we're installing an aftermarket fuel pump, we probably want to go in and change some of our voltage thresholds here. We want to feed that pump as much voltage as possible to hit the desired target pressure that we're going after. We'll talk about that here in a bit when we're looking at how to update this for a DW400 fuel pump. But just know that the values in here are a feed forward value. This is going to be where the engine control module is going to be starting from, or the fuel pump control module, I should say, is starting from in its control, and it's going to adjust from the values in here. Now, we have a way that we can actually log our actual fuel pump voltage, and then we can update this table over time as we're driving around, because the engine control module, fuel pump control module, will learn what the fuel pump to voltage relationship is going to be, and it'll adjust in the keep alive memory what those updates are going to be. So as you start to do some drive cycles and you're not constantly reflashing, whatever you run for base values here, it'll adjust from that point. So if the values are too low, it'll adjust them up. If the values are too high, it'll adjust them down. We always want to have a good base table value here to start off with, but it's not the end of the world if you don't have it perfect as you start to drive and run your engine. Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.